Hey there friends, it's Mandy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I will be walking you through my oracle deck collection that I really love using in my yoga practice. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, grab a beverage and let's get into it. I am so excited to be back with you guys. With this video, I want to do something a little bit different, do something a little bit, or I think personally is really fun. Oracle decks have always been a really big part of my practice, so I wanted to walk you guys through some of the oracle decks that I really like to use specifically in my yoga practice. Now, some of these decks I use in other ways as well. I don't use them exclusively for yoga, but any of the ones that I have used or like to use in my yoga practice, I have collected all of those up, and I thought it'd be really fun to walk you guys through that. So the first deck that we'll be talking about today is the Yogic Oracle by Sahara Rose. Sahara, not 100% sure how she likes to pronounce that. I'm going to say Sahara, and hopefully that's right. Let me know down in the comments if you know which way I'm supposed to pronounce that. But this deck will probably come as no surprise to any of you if you either follow her or you follow the Oracle and Tarot community. I know this one was really popular. This deck is absolutely stunning. So if you look at the box here, there's this beautiful gold foiling on it, and you will find that throughout the cards as well, which is just absolutely stunning. This is what the back of the box looks like. I am just obsessed with this box here. It's absolutely beautiful. And then you open it up, and on the insides here it says, "May these cards bridge you to your highest self," which is absolutely beautiful. So then you kind of lift this open here, and you come with a rather sizable guidebook, which I always appreciate in a guidebook. And not only that, but the guidebook is full color. How amazing is that? And again, you see more of that gold foiling on here. Everything about this deck is just so beautiful. So if you flip into the guidebook, you'll see that there are several different categories, I guess you would say, among the cards. So she has a section on spirituality, Ayurveda, the chakras, yoga, as well as deities, which is super awesome. And then there's a separate table of contents where she alphabetizes the cards too, which is what I usually reference so that I can find them quicker. And then when you actually get into the guidebook, there's a section on understanding the deck. There's an introduction, this lovely little explanations there. And then you actually get into the individual cards here. So for example, here is Svadhisthana in the chakra section. And there is a description on, there's a little write-up on what if you pull the card upright, and also if you pull the card reversed. So if you read reversals, that might be useful for you. Usually, I don't typically read reversals a whole lot when I pull cards. So usually, what I'll end up doing is, if I feel like I need to reference the guidebook, what I like to do is to read both, and then just kind of lean into which one I intuitively feel is more applicable to my situation. So that's how I personally like to do it. You might feel differently, and that is totally valid. So we get to the guidebook, and then the actual deck, the cards are in here, and I am going to have some cutaway footage of the individual cards if that is something that you'd like to see. That way you can see the artwork a little bit closer. But then again, we have the box. It is absolutely beautiful. I have more of that foiling. And then when you get into the cards, the card backs are absolutely stunning. This is what the card backs look like. So the way that I like to use this deck, and really how I like to use really all of these decks in my yoga practice, is I really like to pull a card at the beginning as I am getting started. And I really like to just kind of take a moment, sit with it, lean into the messages, and then I like to use that card as an intention going forward to carry me through my practice. So I especially love using this deck when I'm teaching in particular, especially because it leans so heavily into the spirituality and the philosophy associated with yoga that I find it not only to be really powerful in terms of using as an intention, but it's also super powerful in terms of teaching, just because there is so much to learn really for everybody within yoga as a system. So that's such a powerful tool that I really, really love using in my classes. The next deck that I am pulling is a little bit different, a little bit more woo-woo spiritual, but it is the Earth Magic Oracle deck by Stephen Farmer. This is the very first Oracle deck that I really ever was exposed to way back in high school. My really good friend actually gave me a reading with not this copy, but with this deck, and it was my first exposure to Oracle cards, and I honestly just fell in love and went head over heels. And several years later, when I wanted to take the plunge in and buy my own deck, this is the deck that I bought. So not only is this the first deck that ever exposed me to Oracle cards, but it's also the first deck I've ever purchased for myself and ever had in my collection. So this one is super, super, super special. So I really love using this deck, particularly when I'm practicing or when I'm teaching classes around the equinoxes or the solstices, because that's just such a powerful time to really connect with the earth and lean into her healing, lean into that magic. And so what's really nice about this deck, as the name suggests, it is very earthy, so I find that it just really connects with the energies of the solstices and the equinoxes really, really well. So again, this is definitely a deck that I use outside of my yoga practice, but when I'm using it within my yoga practice, that's when I like to pull it out in particular. So has a little guidebook, not as hefty as a guidebook as the Yogic Oracle, but still this guidebook definitely packs a punch, definitely very useful. So as you flip into it, has some instructions, has like prepping for a new deck. It has some different card spreads, which might be useful for you. And then it delves into the meanings of the cards. And I believe these are in alphabetical order, which makes it super easy. You just quickly flip through and find the card that you're looking for. So then this is what the card backs look like. It is absolutely stunning. I love that there's just like so many different colors as you flip through this deck. But yeah, again, this deck is just absolutely lovely to use when you're really wanting to really connect with the earth. It even has cards in here, like one of the cards, or a couple of the cards, that actually has the autumnal equinox, which is the keyword rebirth. I mean, these colors are just stunning. Look at those fall colors. And it also has like spring equinox for rebirth. So yeah, it's just so many powerful lessons that can be really leaned into this deck. I also believe that they had a different artist do every or do the different cards, which is super, super cool. So you can really see the nice variety in there, which I think just adds a really, really, really nice touch. So each card really feels like it has it really its own individual energy to it, which is super, super, super cool. Cannot say enough positive things about this deck. This is also a great deck to pull out if you're doing like a Earth Day yoga practice, just really anytime you're feeling like you really want to connect and ground Grounding is especially another really good energy that comes with this deck. So that is how I like to use the Earth Magic Oracle. All right, this next deck, really these next two decks are rather similar. So I'm kind of going to talk about these really about the same time because quite frankly, aside from slight color and art differences, they really read exactly the same to me. So the first one is the Universe Has Your Back deck by Gabrielle Bernstein, and the other one is the Spirit Junkie deck by Gabrielle Bernstein. So both of these decks are definitely affirmation decks. Neither one of them come with guidebooks, especially because a lot of the cards are just they're affirmations, so they're pretty self-explanatory. You don't really necessarily need that extra help. But I really love these, pulling these at the start of a practice or at the start of a class. Sometimes if I'm teaching an in-person class, I sometimes allow students to pull an individual card themselves. That way they have a personal affirmation for themselves within the class. That can be another really nice way that I like to use this deck. But for the Universe Has Your Back deck, this is what the card backings look like. And then there's just a really beautiful like watercolor style art. The art is very minimal. So most of the time, honestly, I don't lean too much into the art, unlike the Earth Magic Oracle and even a Yogic Path Oracle. Those decks definitely lean really strongly into the art, whereas these are definitely much more minimal. So they provide a really nice just kind of backdrop for the affirmation to come through and stand on its own. You might get a lot out of the artwork. I don't usually. But yeah, so that is these decks. Real quick, I will show you the backing for the Spirit Junkie deck. But this is what the backings for that look like. Again, it says they're very similar. But this is the backing for the Universe Has Your Back, and this is the backing for the Spirit Junkie. So as you can see, these decks are very similar. If I had to, I don't really know. I honestly don't really know if I could pick a favorite between the two. If you only had the budget for one deck, or you really just only want one affirmation deck in your practice, I would definitely say you probably don't necessarily need both, but I really like both. I think the Spirit Junkie definitely has a bit of a brighter color palette to it, whereas the Universe Has Your Back deck is a little bit of a darker color palette, so just kind of depends on your personal preference. But that is the Universe Has Your Back and the Spirit Junkie Oracle. So last but certainly not least, we have the Hedgewitch Botanical Oracle by Siolo Thompson. I love this deck. I actually received this as a Christmas gift a couple of Christmases ago, and it's one that I had seen before, but I didn't. I like saw the artwork and I didn't necessarily think that I was going to really be able to connect with the artwork very much, so I hadn't purchased it for myself. But my sister-in-law picked this up for me as a Christmas gift, and I'm so happy that she did, because this has honestly turned into probably my absolute favorite deck to use for yoga practices. So as you can see, you open the box as a really nice magnetic clasp here, which is so nice. You have a very hefty size guidebook. So the guidebook looks like this, and as you flip through it, again, it's another color guidebook, which I always really appreciate as well. But let's see, has a little bit about the author, has some sections on introduction, how to use the cards. There's also a section on foraging and plant use, which is super, super cool. And then it has and then it goes straight into the alphabetical list of the cards. Another thing, but before I get to the actual cards, that I love about this guidebook is I actually find this guidebook to be super, super useful. Not all of my decks do I necessarily reach for the guidebook ever. Maybe just like occasionally if I'm feeling called to, but this one I always like to read the guidebook, especially because each of the cards is a different type of plant, and I don't, even though there are keywords, I don't necessarily am always familiar with the plant that with the plant card that I pulled. So it's really useful for me to look into the deck or the book and read a little bit more about that plant. So as you flip through, like garlic, for example, it goes into like how you can use it. Like the leaves can be used in salad, soup, or as a savory herb. The stems can be preserved by salting or pickling. The bulbs are edible, small and onion-like. So it just goes kind of into actually like cooking with and eating the herb, which is super, super cool. And then it goes a little bit more into like the history of how the different plant has been used in the past, or how it's been like represented in the past. And then it goes into the oracle property. So again, so all parts of this plant are edible and useful, hence the oracle property service. Many oracle properties are about finding or marshaling things about yourself that are most unique and special, but this card urges service in a less specific way. Then it goes a little bit more into it. So I just find this guidebook to be super, super valuable. I love reaching for it. I love using it, which again is not something that I can say for a lot of other decks that I have. So getting into the cards, the part that probably everyone is very anxious to see. This is what the backings look like. Again, just absolutely stunning. And then as you get into the actual cards, it's just a really simple white background with these really beautiful like line drawings with just a little hint of color. So it's very minimal, very simplistic, but absolutely gorgeous. And as you're looking at them, they have the common name for the plant, followed by the scientific name, and then a key word. So a lot of times that key word is what I really love using as an intention to drive a yoga class, which is I find these keywords to just be so incredibly valuable and just so intuitive to really tap into, which I really appreciate because I know when I first got this deck, I didn't think that it would be as easy to read as it turned out to be. But I personally just absolutely love reading this deck. I think it is so, so easy to read, so simple. And I think part of that is honestly how simple and how minimal the designs are. So you don't necessarily get lost. You can really just lean into the beauty of the plant and then really just lean into the keyword and the oracle property of that plant without necessarily getting lost in the artwork. So this is, again, probably one of my absolute favorite decks to pull right now. That may or may not change as I get more decks in the future. So that has been all of the oracle decks in my collection that I really love to use in my yoga practice. Comment down below what, if you read with oracle cards, what are some decks that you like to use in your personal practice? I'm super, super interested to know. I love hearing about other people's collections. It is always just a super fun topic for me. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, welcome. If you'd like to see more content like this, please make sure to subscribe. And as always, everyone, the love, the light, and the darkness within me sees, honors, and recognizes the love, the light, and the darkness within you. Namaste.